Is your girl Cadillac. Yes, I'm Cadillac Dixon. I'm the Draw My Life prison wife. I'm the legally blind artist that is rapping and painting for justice. Helping! Because you got to hold your breath for justice. To see justice before all face too bleak. Yes, it's your girl Cadillac. Anyways, guys, I'm coming through today, April the 23rd. Got off of work, about to go pick up my phone finally. I found one of my old little iPhones that had got I thought it didn't work. I had jumped in a pool of water to save my niece because she had stepped off the step and went under, girl. And before I even knew what I was doing, I jumped in that pool and I jumped in with this phone. So I didn't know that this phone worked, but glory be to God. Maybe he do want me to be doing my content because, I'm struggling back and forth with that. But before I go pick up my regular phone, I thank God had this one to record. Okay, so I have been heavily following the Carmelo Anthony case, mainly because it is getting really huge in the media. I do have a first video that I recorded about the situation. Now, y'all know me. I look at things from a law standpoint, per law, justice per law. And you are supposed to look at a case through eyes of justice. But remember, I told you in the last one, you have the eyes, the lens of justice, right? But in our system, you always have to apply the filter of injustice, right? You have to apply the filter of injustice over it because the lens is clear. Oh, shoot. Another one. I have something called keratoconus, right? Which is what makes me legally blind. My eye is healthy, glory be to God, even after all the issues I just had. Girl, I went to the doctor and they said my eye is healthy, so I have no issues with my eye. The lens. So the lens, justice. The justice system is set up correct. It's beautiful the way it's set up. But now the reason I'm legally blind is because my cornea on the front of my eye is corrupted because it protrudes out. And it protrudes out so far that it's going to rupture. So my eye is healthy, but it has a corrupted cornea on it. That is exactly like the system. The system, the justice system, is set up correctly, perfect, for the perfect, most just situation to come out for everybody. But the problem is they always apply the filter of injustice over the top, which prevents you from getting justice in a lot of cases. In a lot of cases, when it people that go through the system with hues and shades like mine, skin tones like mine, they apply that filter. If you don't have that shade or that hue, they might not apply that filter. They might let you just go through the actual justice system, right? So great example. I love that. Glory be to God. Thank you, Lord, for giving me that. That is perfect. That's the perfect analogy. So I like to look at things through the eyes of justice, and per justice, this case is a very good one. I don't cover high profile cases. Really my sole thing is trying to break my husband's wrongful conviction story, get him home. I just wanted my family back together, but in the process I started learning other people are wrongfully incarcerated or excessively sentenced in prison and stuff like that, and it became a mission as well because I realized it wasn't just my family hurt from this system. It was many. So the last case I really covered was the Tory Lanez case, and it was because people were making so many judgments. Now, I've never said whether Tory Lanez is innocent or guilty. I don't know. And the reason I'm going to tell you I don't know is because I don't know enough facts about the case. I don't call a case without knowing the facts, as is this case of Karmelo Anthony. We don't know all the facts because all the facts ain't out there. They have many facts that they may release during trial, and I say may because in trials, and I cover wrongful convictions, many times exculpatory evidence goes missing. It does not end up in trial and presented for a jury. Many times they enhance anything that could be considered inculpatory evidence to make the person seem as though they are more guilty. So more elements may come out during trial. But right now, we don't have all the elements, so you cannot call a case. You're not supposed to call it. Now, per justice, and because Karmelo pled not guilty, he is presumed to be innocent. And you are to treat him as innocent until he is proven guilty. Proven guilty is like bowling pins. You knock down one pin, one aspect, one element, you didn't strike. So he is still innocent. Until you lay all them pins flat on their back, the person is still innocent. You have got to check off each mark to have guilt. That is per law. It doesn't matter the color of the person. It doesn't matter who the person is. It does not matter. This is what the law is, and this is how you have to apply it for it to be equal, fair, and just, right? You can't apply the filter to certain cases and then don't apply the filter of injustice to other cases and say it was just. It can't be, because we're not being treated equally in that case, right? And people tend to not understand that. So he is presumed innocent. He is to be treated innocent until he is proven guilty. That is one. And people really do not, this case shows that people really don't know the law. They know the perception of the law, and I tell y'all this all the time. It's like a funhouse mirror. Or no, it's like that two-sided mirror where it shows you this beautiful picture on the outside. But there's something happening behind the mirror that you don't see. And that is how it most times is. People have this illusion of the system of justice and all of that. And it is not until you're thrusted or until you see behind that mirror do you actually know what's really happening, right? And the problem is, if you never encounter the system, you're just going to think it's fair. You're going to automatically trust it. You're going to put all your eggs in that one basket and you're going to run with that. But I have been done unjustly by this system in many different ways. But I know it's not fair nor just. I know the fairest trial you will get, you will need a lot of money. You will need that bag that Karmelo Anthony's family raised. You're going to need that bag, because without that bag, you're not going to get a fair trial. Allegedly. And I know, because we didn't have no bag, and this is why my husband is still wrongfully incarcerated. So I just wanted to touch on one little aspect. Now, I have been watching so many videos about this case. I love when people talk about justice, because we need to be more informed. We need to stop thinking we know and actually know, actually find out what's going on and actually participate in the right manner. If you sat on someone's jury, you could not go by your assumptions. You're not supposed to. You're not supposed to go on your assumptions, your feelings, your nothing. Case is to be decided on the evidence or the lack thereof evidence. That is it. That is the only thing you are supposed to call a case on. But people are not calling it on that. So per justice, he is presumed innocent. He does deserve a fair trial. The bond is not to punish somebody and should be a reachable bond for many people, which that also is not, it makes it where the rich could commit crime and get out. And then the poor, if they commit crime or if they don't, whether they're rightfully or wrongfully in jail for their charge, just because they're poor and cannot meet that bond, they don't get out. But if you're rich and you're guilty, innocent or guilty, you can get out. What makes the difference in a rich criminal and a poor criminal? They both are criminals, right? But that's that filter of injustice when we think like that. But peel it back, the lens of justice, your net worth should not determine whether you get justice or not. So I was looking at a multitude of videos all yesterday, really since the case. The first one, I'm gonna tell you, I heard it on Introverted Rockstar, the first place I heard this story. And I didn't realize it happened on my sister's birthday, April the 2nd. So this one content creator, which I really like him because he does the exact same thing. He looks at it through law. It was another one. I don't have that. It was a duo of self-defense criminal attorneys, and they were calling the case by law, per law, which means if people get so mad because it's being called by law, that means you don't like the laws. That means you have to amend the laws. That means you have to vote on the correct laws. That way, when the laws are being applied, you're not angry. You're not upset because the law is being applied correctly, right? The correct law, the law that you want, that you participate or don't participate to have, comes about. Hold on, my phone is about to die. It's actually also, I'm sorry, can't say that. Gotta say unalive. My phone's about to unalive itself. But then that way you won't be upset because they will be following the laws of the land that you decide, right? Right now, if you're upset with what's taking place, if you're upset with the bond, if you're upset with being presumed innocent until proven guilty, you have to change the law on that. You have to amend the law. That means you don't like the law, right? But there was a content creator, and his name is Real Nathan Daly, Daley. And he was talking about the elements of a crime. You have to have all elements present in that act that they are alleging is a crime to be able to charge a person with that charge, right? So there, and this is exactly what I've been trying to, you see, people tune me out every day. People make fun of me, talk about me, all kinds of, I get so many nasty comments. And it's because I have been saying these same things over and over and over until I'm blue in the face. And it's because you have to do this to possibly get justice for your loved one, which most likely I'm never gonna get justice. I haven't gotten it in 23 years, so I'm really not understanding what makes me think that my soul will get justice. We aren't. We're stuck in this system, right? But I have been saying this for like ever, and people tell me that my husband really is rightfully in prison. Most likely he did it. 12 jurors ain't gonna just find him guilty just to be mean. And I'm pointing out that all the elements needed to charge my husband were not there. They're not present, but yet they still charge, which equates in a wrongful conviction. But I'm told they don't wrongfully convict people. Like, I'm called a liar in every way that you can be called a liar. I'm called dumb. I'm called stupid. I'm called everything. But per law, you've wrongfully convicted my husband. And when he brought up this element, it was like, oh, that's perfect. That's exactly what I was trying to explain. So he says you have to have all the elements of the crime to be able to charge. So in the video, he was talking about people are saying that it is premeditated murder that Karmelo Anthony did. First, I do want to say both sides of this story is so sad. Like, honestly, it is so sad. A son is lost. A twin, too. That's a special relationship. A twin son is lost. And that has to be rough. That's crazy. That's over something that clearly on both sides, that's me putting my emotion. Let me back that out. Take that out. It's just the case. But it's sad. It's sad on both sides. Both sides. Both families losing their sons, right? But the video was about, you can't just jump to saying that it's premeditated murder on Karmelo's side because you don't have all the elements. You need all of that, and then parts of them you won't get, or you possibly won't get till trial. Like I said, they exclude a lot of stuff. So many facts you may never hear because they're going to try to minimize it, and they're going to try to play up anything that's inculpatory. Like I told you, they tend to exclude and decrease and just graze over exculpatory evidence. But then inculpatory evidence, they try to big it up and make it grander than life. And whatever goes and the jury believes, that's pretty much what happens. So what he was saying, you need to have all elements to charge. In my husband's case, they charged him. He was charged, convicted of of armed, I don't even know if I can say this on here. Let's say armed rob of $80. So to be convicted, to be formally charged and convicted of armed rob, you have to have two elements. Probably more, but you have to have two elements at least. You need the arm, you need the weapon, right? And you need something to have been robbed. Armed robbery. You need both, right? In my husband's case, they don't have neither. They allege my husband robbed two guys of $80. When they were arrested, they weren't arrested, which they should have been, honestly. But when they were stopped and told to get out of the vehicle, they said, what happened? And they jumped out and said, we were robbed. They wrote their initial sworn statements and said that my husband, Marcello Jackson, robbed them of $80. Okay. Right after that, my husband was searched, and they found that my husband did not have $80 on him, per what they said was robbed from them. My husband had a different denomination of money. He had just gotten paid. How do you prove whose money is which when the denomination is not equal? Now, if my $100 bill go missing and oops, you got that $100 bill, yes, you could say that is my $100 bill. But let's say you had only 80 on you, and I said in my sworn statement that my $100 bill went missing, but you are only found with $80. How can I prove that you took my $100 bill? It's just like a purse. Now, get the money aspect out your mind. If I say I had a red purse and this man snatched my red purse, but they find another man with a purple purse, they can't come bring me that man with the purple purse and say, here, ma'am, here's your purse. He robbed your purse, but the purse is not the same. My purse was red. That purse is purple. You cannot charge him with robbing me of my purse when the purse does not align. Right? And even the judge burst out and said, wait a minute, you can't charge him with robbery. The money ain't the same. Even the judge recognized you could not do that. And that's when they said, oh, well, he said no matter what they said, he was not going to let him be charged with armed robbery because the money was not the same. The state's defense argued and said, well, he tried to rob it. He did try. He tried. And the judge said, okay, you can pick it up as armed robbery. I'm sorry, you could pick it up as attempted armed robbery because the money's not the same. So you can't have that robbery element because the thing robbed ain't even the same thing. Okay, now to back up a little bit, when they wrote that sworn statement of being robbed of $80, when the officer actually once searched my husband Marcello and realized he did not have what they said in their statement, he gave their sworn statements back to them and said, cross it out and write in the amount that Marcello had on him. So in this sworn affidavit, you see where both of them had 80 written, they crossed it out, and then they wrote in the amount that my husband was searched and had on him. And they charged him with armed robbery. Now the second element you need is a weapon. You need to be armed, right? Or it would have been theft. It wouldn't have been robbery, which would have been significantly less time, even if they did wrongfully convict my husband of theft or whatever other charge would have been lesser. He would have been home because he's already done 23 wrongful years in prison. Okay. The alleged victims say that they felt cold steel against their nose. This is where the weapon is being introduced, right? But they never produced a weapon. They were saying, I was robbed. He put cold steel against my nose, right? But when they were arrested, there was no weapon found. The officer alleged that helicopter in the sky, dogs, that they did a perimeter and they could not find the weapon. They did a great search, but turned up no weapon. Now, the way you could be charged with a weapon where there is no weapon found is if someone has evidence of a weapon being there. Had they been powed, if there was residue, if there were anybody injured, you could have proved there was a weapon. But you have no injuries, nobody powed, nobody hurt, nobody injured, nobody nothing. You have no fingerprints and you have no weapon, but you still charge him with the weapon. So now you charge my husband with armed robbery with no arm and no robbery. And it stuck. Then to add insult to injury, to further railroad him through this system, my husband, who was only 20 years old at the time, to further railroad him, you stack charges. And the charges that they stacked could only be stacked on top of armed robbery. So you got to prove, it was a two-part, you got to prove the armed robbery first. to be able to prove the second charges, because without no armed robbery, the element, remember the man, the real Nathan Daly said you need all the elements to even charge and to convict. Later, convict comes later. How can you be convicted if you don't have all the elements? But they took these charges that could only be stacked on top of armed robbery, and they stacked them and charged them with that as well. So all the way around, without all the elements, my husband was wrongfully arrested, wrongfully charged, and then later wrongfully convicted. And that's why, I mean, just listening to more and more of these cases and listening to people who actually know the law explain it, it makes me know even more that my husband is wrongfully incarcerated and been wrongfully convicted. But see, it doesn't matter because I didn't get the media backing. Well, I attempted to, but I never got the media backing. So my husband's wrongful conviction is in the shadows. It's in the back. Nobody cares because nobody sees it, right? Only reason people care about this case is because the case got big in the media. But let me tell you, things like this happen every single day. And nobody is outraged about it. Nobody. And the second lesson it teaches us is that each person really needs to learn the law for themselves, just in case you or your loved one is thrusted in it. I keep saying that every day of my life. I say that. And people tend to think they're too good to end up in this system where you could end up in it just like that. And then, like I say, it's like a trap door. Once you're in it, your behind is stuck. A bear trap. You stuck. Unless you do like Karmelo Anthony did. However, grace be to God, opened those doors for him, and his case broke. And he got support. Because you're going to need it going through the system. So he might get the fairest trial. He's definitely going to get a fairer trial than many of the people that were not able to get up criminal defense money and were not able to get their stories in the media. But that's my thoughts for now. I'm sorry people hate that I always compare my husband's case to other people's cases. And the reason I do that is because it just gives so much more validity to what I'm saying. I know how the system freaking works. If you have not been through it, you don't know. And if you've been through it, was the filter in justice applied over the lens of justice in your case? Because they only use that filter on some certain people, right? All right, guys, so I'm finna go get my phone. I'll talk to you guys later. All right, it's your girl Cadillac.